Hello, my name is Caroline Currans. I'm currently a freshman in Mankato majoring in marketing. For Women's Entrepreneurship Week, we are interviewing with different women in our area. Today, I am interviewing Michelle Schooff. She's the VP of Marketing at SAP, as well as the investor of the Hotel Alexander and Arch and Cable Hotel in downtown Mankato. Hi, Michelle.
Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
My first question is, what early experiences, whether in school, your first jobs, or community involvement, shaped your entrepreneurial mindset?
I think growing up in a small farming community in southern Minnesota, Rose Creek, Minnesota, really shaped who I am today. And that entrepreneurial spirit was really part of my upbringing. My mom worked at the elementary school for 33 years, but in tandem, my dad was very entrepreneurial. So he started his own business in addition to farming, where he sold feed and livestock equipment. And that has really carried through my entire career. And a funny story, when I was at MSU, I started at MSU in 1991. I lived in the dorms and we had the old rotary dial telephones, and my dad had me do telemarketing to different farmers in the area, and I had a list of questions. I didn't even know about lead generation or anything like that. And I'd ask them, how many head of hog they had, how many farrowing crates they might need. And I went through the phone book with every farmer that had a rural route address. I just called them, and then I had a little lead form, and I'd send them to my dad, and he paid me $50 a week. So that was my job out of the McElroy dorms my first year.
I love that. That's so cool. All right, my next question is, what are the biggest risks you've taken in your career, professionally or within marketing strategy? And how did you evaluate or manage those risks?
I think from a risk taking perspective, I've always looked at taking a risk as a learning opportunity, whether or not it's a successful initiative or it's not. I think with people that I've managed over the years, and also people who have managed me, that spirit of using those opportunities as a way to learn and grow, I think, is kind of woven in the fabric of who I am and how I operate, whether that's investments or my corporate job at SAP. I've been in the technology industry for over 30 years. I can't believe that I am saying that, but one of the things that surprised a lot of people is when I came out of high school and started at MSU, I was absolutely terrified of public speaking. And one of the risks I took right out of college was to take a job with a technology training company to overcome my fear of public speaking. And back then, I was training people on how to use a mouse. And so it was a great experience, and I made it really fun so I could overcome that fear, knowing that whatever job or career path that I chose, public speaking and being able to present in a clear and concise manner was going to be something I was going to have to master and just get through it.
Perfect. I love that. My next question is, could you walk us through a particularly challenging marketing or product go-to market strategy you led, how you approached it, and what the outcome was?
Yes, I have a great story there. So during COVID, there were a lot of challenges in the business world, and marketing was one of them. And working remotely for SAP, also traveling quite a bit leading up to that COVID time, we were trying to figure out how to reach potential buyers in the business community. And one of the ways that I suggested we approach that is really humanizing the brand at SAP. It is a large software company. We've been around for years and years and years. And I think we took a little bit different approach. And I did a proposal that I called Project Abe, after my nephew Abe. and really tried to humanize the brand. And we made several videos that were kind of touching the hearts of people during that time, and did a projection on pipeline impact and revenue impact. And it was an all-consuming project that really took my mind off of kind of what was going on in the world. And it was a successful program. And I went out and sold sponsorships to our technology partners to help fund that, because we didn't know what was coming around the corner, what we might have for budget. And it started as Project Abe because his friend wrote him a letter during COVID. It was a pencil handwritten letter talking about how he missed him, and all he wanted to do was this pandemic to be over so he could play with him. And that touched my heart in a way. And I used that piece of paper, scanned it in, and talked to my coworkers, and we came up with a very solid approach to how we could solve business problems through the eyes of a child. And it was an incredible experience. I had a great collaboration across my team, across all of the industries at SAP that wanted to participate. And so it was risky, but in the end, it worked out really well, and brought kind of more of a sentimental approach to technology marketing, which isn't always easy.
That's really cool. I like how you use like one of your like family members. That's really cool.
Oh, I had my three nephews doing voiceovers for the videos. So I'd
Really?
go over
That's
to
so
their
cool.
house, and they would have little microphones. And my middle nephew was 8 at the time, and he would read the voiceovers, and they ended up being such a great experience, not only professionally but personally. I'll go back and watch the animations and hear their little voices, and it just I didn't have to pay actor talent fees or anything, because I just run over during the day, and my nephews were at home schooling, and so they welcomed the opportunity, and then they got to see the different videos come to life with their voiceovers.
That's so cool. All right. My next question is, okay, given SAP's scale and resources, how do you keep the organization nimble and responsive to new trends, especially in consumer products or chemicals, given your past focus?
I have had an incredible career at SAP. I've been there 14 years, just over 14 years, and I've had the opportunity to build my brand within the organization, and work in several different industries. So I started out in retail, technology marketing, then went over to wholesale distribution, life sciences, chemicals, led a consumer industries team. And then now I'm working on agribusiness, which is a passion of mine, being from southeastern Minnesota, and also consumer products, which I think everybody can relate to that. So I think when I started at SAP, my boss at the time was German. And he said, you need to spend the first 3 months getting to know people within the organization, because that's how things get done here. And I'm a very metrics based person. I want to know the impact I'm making in the organization, and how I'm benchmarking and, rising or falling with demand generation and those kinds of things. And I thought, this is very uncomfortable for me to just spend time introducing myself over Zoom or Microsoft Teams and talking to people and getting to know them. Looking back now, that was the most valuable piece of advice that I had when starting with a global company, and not having as much access to in-person meetings or interactions, and trying to talk to people in Asia at different time zones and things. And those relationships to this day have just helped me so much with learning and growing with the company, cultural differences, cultural messaging that we need to adapt. And I think that's the best advice that I can give. entrepreneurs, and especially women entrepreneurs, is to be bold, get out there and talk about what you bring to the table, and also learn what others bring to the table. And that sort of networking has really served me well, both in corporate America and outside of that with some of my investments. When people say it's about who you know, it really is true. And I pride myself on being very, I think, socially aware and putting puzzle pieces together of people and opportunities, and I love it. Those kinds of things fill my cup. So it's an area that I like to focus on.
Perfect. I love how I can just like tell how passionate you are about your job. It's like just so well said.
Oh, thank you.
My next question is, what barriers still exist for women entrepreneurs in the technology or marketing space, and how can companies and individuals help reduce those barriers?
I think mentoring is a huge opportunity for both seasoned professionals and early talent. That is something I've been able to identify both male and female mentors and leaders throughout my career that have given me sage advice, who have lifted me up when I needed it. And I think I've been able to return the favor. While I was at MSU, my last year at MSU, I got a scholarship from Glenn Taylor at the time, and it was an incredible honor. And to be transparent, the scholarship was $500, but it was a big deal to me at the time. And one of the advantages of that was that everybody who received a scholarship got to go meet him. And I was so intimidated, and I thought, what am I going to say to this incredibly generous man? And so, in true, fashion, I went to the mall and got this beautiful peach colored dress with lace lapels, and headed up to Taylor Organization. And I thought, what am I going to say? So I just said to him, if you have one piece of advice for someone at my stage in my college and then eventually in my career, what would you say? And he said, if you ever get the chance to pay it forward, please pay it forward. And I really internalized that. And years later, when my father passed away in 2013, my husband and I created a scholarship program through the Mankato Area Foundation. And I go back to my high school every year and award scholarships to students who are focused on the trades, going to trade schools and plumbing, heating. My dad was very passionate about that. And we really kind of target the students that aren't necessarily probably your National Honor Society students, but the kids who are leaving school in the afternoon to go home and do chores or go out in the field, and might not think that they have opportunities at scholarships like that. And so it brings me such great joy. My mother, my aunts, my grandma, we all go back every year and do this. And I think that has really stuck with me over the years. And even with community and volunteer work, Glenn saying, if you have the opportunity to give back, do it. And so then I started thinking about 5 years ago at Christmas, I thought, I am going to write Glenn Taylor a letter and tell him that story. And I did. And I remember being very nervous. I sent it, and I got an email back from him shortly after he received it, expressing his gratitude for reaching out, and just saying, that note that you sent to me was one in a million, and I really appreciate it. And so those types of experiences and interactions, I think over the course of my career and my time in Mankato, have just been really laying the foundation for who I am.
I love all those like amazing scholarships you give out. That's wonderful. I think that's so cool. And about how like you're trying to like pay it forward to other people who like are going into like careers that like you were like past like involved in. I think that's really amazing.
I think to address one of your other questions around barriers,
Mm-hmm.
I think we're in a situation right now as entrepreneurs and even as women where it's really our time. It's time to talk about how not only you have a seat at the table, but you earned that seat at the table. And early on in my career, that was something that was not evident to me. I thought, gosh, I feel like an underdog coming in, and my career has primarily been in a male dominated industry. And so coming in as a woman and maybe feeling like you weren't as smart as, or that you didn't deserve to be there, is a completely different approach than men typically have. They're like, I'm here and I'm good. And so I've spent a lot of time over my career capturing my accomplishments and the things that I have done, and not being afraid to communicate that to stakeholders in my company or people that I work with, and saying, here's where we started and here's where we are now and here's where I think we can go. So I think over communicating helps knock down some of those perceived barriers that are only there because you don't have the confidence to say, here's what I've done and here's what I can do.
That was really well said.
You.
um, my last question is, looking ahead 5 to 10 years, what trends in tech marketing industry or opportunities excite you the most? And where do you see potential or new ventures or leadership?
I would say artificial intelligence is at the forefront of just about everything that I do right now. From my work at SAP, that is an area that our company has been exploring and growing. There's an incredible amount of opportunity there. I think taking a look at artificial intelligence in general, the sentiment that I hear quite a bit is, oh, the AI is going to replace my job. They're not going to need me, but there still is a need for that human interaction. AI does a great job with data and processing data, but sometimes you need human intervention to analyze that data in real world situations. And I'll give you an example. We had an opportunity to redo a website, and I was asked, can't AI just do that for you? And I said, sure. So I did two versions of the website, one done by AI and one that I wrote using the industry and technology knowledge that I have. And I blindly went to key stakeholders and said, which version do you prefer? And the one they preferred was the one that I wrote because it had more of that human approach. And there were actually some mistakes in AI about different things or offerings that we had. And I think we're getting there, but AI doesn't have all the data and just kind of sometimes makes assumptions that are not correct. So we're still in a situation where human interaction, I think, is really important. And also, I think one of the key things is everybody is in sales, whether you're selling selling on a commission based approach, or you're selling yourself. And I think learning that and how to communicate that is a huge opportunity and a way that people can differentiate themselves from just going that technology route, and showing what that human lens in looking at, whether it be messaging, communications, selling, marketing. I think there's an incredible opportunity there, but we're not there yet. And the world still needs us, and people buy things from people they like. So AI is not going to do that, at least in the near term. In 30 days, it may.
It's crazy how fast the world changes.
It really is technology. I always say when I'm at a point of sale checking out, the point of sale will freeze or something. And I would say, I work in technology. Technology is a beautiful thing when it works, but when it doesn't, it is one of the most frustrating things, whether it's your iPhone or you're trying to check out at Macy's. If you can get technology to do what you need it to do, there's nothing more gratifying.
Perfect. Okay. I just wanted to ask you if you had any like final thoughts you wanted to say for anybody who's going into a career like yours.
I would say surround yourself with people who support you and that are also smarter than you. I will tell you an interesting story. When I started at SAP, I'd worked for a smaller technology company in St. Paul and lived up there for several years. And I walked into my first meeting at SAP. It was a round table of men and me. And everybody went around the table to introduce themselves and say, the question was, where did you get your college degree? And it was Harvard, Princeton, Stanford, MIT, and Minnesota State University. And so everybody looked at me and I kind of said, you know what? We are all here doing the same job. And my education was just a lot more affordable than yours was. And so really kind of made light of that. And I do use humor quite a bit to I would say make situations less uncomfortable. And because everybody looked at me and they said, oh, Minnesota State University, so you were a Minnesota Gopher? I'm like, no, 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 no. This is a completely different school, and talked about my experience. And I was so proud of being an alum of MSU and sitting at the table with the caliber of people that I was, that went to some of the most amazing educational institutions of the world. And I kept saying, you guys are missing out on one of the most amazing educational institutions I always call it the village of Mankato, because it has that small town feel. So my advice would be take risks, learn from them. I have been surrounded by an incredible group of women, both in my jobs, in my life, in my investments, and leverage those relationships and lean into those and lean into people that are cheering for you, either vocally or silently. And, the world is your oyster.
I love that. Is there anything else you would like to end this interview with?
I would, in summary, I would say over the past 10 years, being part of our community has been really important to my husband and myself. We both volunteer. I sit on the board of the Mankato Area Foundation, of the MSU Foundation, co-chaired Hockey Day Minnesota in 2022 that was on Blakesley Field outside with Bally Sports North and the Minnesota Wild. And you would be surprised how much those community connections really become important to you, and what your legacy is going to be as you get farther along in your career. And I look at, I have two nieces and three nephews, and I think, when I'm sliding into home, I want them to be proud of me and proud of the impact and the legacy that my husband and I have created in this community, and not to forget about that piece as you learn and grow. Don't just put your head down and work, work, work all the time. Make sure that you're doing things that give you that balance in life and that joy, and find your joy.
I love that. Okay. I think that's all we have for you today. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to interview.
Absolutely. It has been my pleasure. And if there's anything I can do to support you all, MSU, I always talk to President Inch. I am just such a proud graduate, and the things that are happening with the Innovation Center and the stadium project, it's really an exciting time to be part of the university and of this community.
Thank you so much. So I love that all you had to say. They were very good answers and very well spoken. So thank you again.
Thank you. Please reach out if you need anything else.
Thanks.